The Declaration of Independence says that when any form of government becomes destructive of the ends of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. The time for us to exercise the second of these rights, to declare our independence from the United States government, is long overdue. Several months ago, I was visiting the city of Bellingham, Washington. One of the major issues that a friend of mine and other area activists were concerned about was the city council's renewal of a franchise agreement with Trans Mountain Pipeline, granting the company another 25 years of use for a section of oil pipeline which runs on city property. So much of the oil which passes through the pipeline is mined from the tar sands in Alberta, a process which generates twice as much toxic waste as oil. And the toxic waste sits in containment ponds where it leaches into the Athabasca River, poisoning the fish and the people who eat them. The sad reality is that the Bellingham City Council had no real choice but to renew this agreement, and no authority to say that tar sands oil would not be allowed in their city. No real choice but to be a cog in this machine of ecological and human destruction. If they had, Trans Mountain would have sued them for a violation of their constitutional rights. Ever since the early days of the United States, the Supreme Court and other federal courts have come up with creative interpretations of various clauses in the Constitution, allowing corporations to use it as a weapon against the power of local communities. States or communities which pass laws that could be perceived as interfering with interstate commerce can be overturned, forcing communities to rely on federal regulations like the Clean Air Act, which treats the murder that is in compliance with pollution standards as though it were a parking ticket. Communities which try to protect their lives and the lives of their children by banning mining or factories are sued for any number of things, including discrimination, violating the corporation's 14th Amendment rights to equal protection under the laws, denial of due process, or taking the corporation's unrealized profits without proper compensation. We have no power to change this within the existing system, the system which our oppressors have created for us. The Supreme Court can only be changed by the President, the Constitution can only be changed by Congress. And the real votes, the votes that really matter, are cast not on ballots, but on checkbooks of corporate political action committees. Votes overwhelmingly in favor of the disempowerment of local communities, and votes which for decades have been limited only by the size of a corporation's bank account. The elected representatives will never turn against those who put them in power, regardless of their party affiliation. And the term party affiliation is an inaccurate term because the truth is that we live in a one-party system. As with any one-party system, there are factions, the Democrats and the Republicans, two sides of the same party, the Wall Street Party, the Imperialist Party, the Neoliberal Party, the Profits Before People Party, the Profits Before Ecosystems, Species, and Indigenous Cultures Party, the Profits Before Clean Air, Food, and Water Party. But none of that is what makes me most disturbed. What scares me the most is that people believe that there's a healthy dialogue between the two parties, when in fact they are fundamentally the same and they agree that property and profits are more important than human life. Hence the lack of any Democratic or Republican initiative to change the Constitution so that it empowers local communities to keep polluters out and say that no means no. And what else can you expect from a political system so large that candidates must garner campaign contributions from wealthy donors and a party stamp of approval? Why stand up for the interests of people when you can count on the corporate media to sell the existing system as though it were the only choice and shut out those who would dare oppose it? Whose interests do Obama, the House, and the Senate really represent? Your interests, my interests, or the interests of their wealthy donors whose support they need before they even begin to reach the voters, and whose money they need in order to reach an audience of hundreds of thousands or an audience of millions? So long as we are ruled by a government of such scale, it will be insulated from the people and put our lives on the altar of capitalist accumulation. If you think that you are exempted from such risk, think again. GE, on multiple occasions in the past, has released nuclear particles into the air off Hanford Nuclear Reservation. Sometimes radiation 500 times the size of 3 Mile Island, delivering cancer to all those who live downwind. They have done it before and they would do it again. Please, take a minute to think about your deepest and most true desires for your life in this world. Do not let yourself be limited by what is deemed realistic and what fits within the status quo. And then tell me if that world involves a giant government that represents the interests of those who put your life and the lives of those you love as a number on a balance sheet or environmental impact statement. We cannot sit idly and let this be. We must build a better world. Thank you.